Hello, this is the Math 159 Gould Chapter 1 Section 3 video, which is about investigating data. Okay, so previously in the last video we learned about how you classify data, the different sorts of variables. So now the question is well, now that you have data and you're going to be dealing with categorical and numerical variables, what exactly are you going to do? So the statistical process of investigating data is sort of an open-ended cycle, and really it's driven by a research topic. And ideally you would start with this question. So so for the statistical investigation process to work, you really have to start with a question, or a research topic that will provide you questions that you need to work with. So you're going to have questions, and these will be oriented around your research topic. Okay, now, so you need to start with a question, step one. Now that you have a question, that will naturally lead you into collecting data, which will be step two. Okay, and I guess I should start off by saying about, questions. Good questions are hard to formulate. Good questions are notoriously hard to formulate. Notoriously hard to formulate. Okay, so what do I mean by that? A good statistical question is not going to be vague, and we're going to go over all the different aspects of what make a good question or research topic. But just to let you know, people struggle with this in general. So let's say that you have a good question. We're going to put aside for a moment, what is a good question? Let's say that you have a good question, and then now you move on to the data collection stage. So there's a lot of things that data covers. Data covers things such as who was observed, who or what was observed. Okay, and we have a name for this. We call them the subjects. Okay, so this is statistical terminology. You're going to collect data about your subjects. Those are the things which were observed. Then you can ask yourself, well, what was measured? Or data answers questions such as what was measured. The things which are measured, we have a name for them. Those are variables. Who collected this data? That's often a thing that you need to think about, or data should answer. When was it collected? Where was it collected? All of these things could possibly be things which are measured or the data needs to address. Okay, now all of your data as a whole is called the sample. Your sample is all the information you have about your subjects. Okay. So let's say that you have this data now. We have the subjects, the things which were observed. We have all these variables, the things which were measured. We know how we collected them. We know where they were collected. We know when they were collected. What is your third natural step? Well, you need to analyze the data. Okay, and that's more or less what this course is about. This course focuses on teaching you, hey, what are the different analytical methods or statistical methods that we have to analyze the data? And this will involve doing all sorts of things, such as making graphs, looking at numbers, different methods that calculate numbers, or different ways to summarize numbers, the numbers or data that you have. Okay. So you had your question, you collected data, you analyzed the data, and then what comes next? That was the third step. Well, you get to the fourth step, which is interpreting your results. And this is something that people often forget about. And you have to ask yourself at this point, after you've formulated your question, you've collected your data, you've analyzed your data, And then you look at the graphs, the numbers, the summaries that you have, and you have to go back and ask yourself, well, am I able to answer the question that I started with? And that ultimately comes down to saying, like, hey, I went and I took my data and I analyzed it by calculating something. What does this number tell me about my original question? That's what I mean by interpret. Um, StatCrunch will provide you with a number, but it's up to you to understand what that number or result means in the context of your question. If you ask yourself, hey, I want to know if this vaccine is effective, you're going to get some number, and then at the end of the day, you have to explain to people or yourself why that number means that the vaccine was or was not effective. Now, this is actually an open-ended cycle. Usually when you get to this point, you may realize that maybe the data you had or the methods you used don't quite answer the question, or maybe the data you had doesn't generalize the way you want, or it doesn't allow you to reach the conclusions you want. So often what it does is it leads you back to formulating a new question and starting this new cycle. So we call this the statistical investigation cycle. Okay. And this is the end of the Chapter 1, Section 3 video.